And we welcome on to the show the State of the Saints podcast host, TJay Jones, to break down a Week 1 win and looking ahead a little bit to a Week 2 matchup with the Carolina Panthers. TJay, first of all, thank you for taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
So, TJay, we start the season, we wait so long to finally have football that counts, and it was by no means a beautiful display of offense or anything of that nature, but in the end, it's a 16-15 win. What did you find out about this team? What are you taking away from it? It's just so hard with 1 week, right? But where are you on this team after a win against the Titans in gutsy fashion?
I mean, it was a tough win, and when you look at the New Orleans Saints, that's what you want going into 2023. You want to see a tough, physical football team. And, going up against the Tennessee Titans, who are tough and physical, I think we learned a lot about this team. And we also learned a lot about this defense. I can remember years where the defense was good, but they weren't very opportunistic. And what you've seen in this game, you've seen members of the secondary, Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo. These guys were attacking the football more so than, worrying about their technique and worrying about making a tackle. So if they can generate turnovers the way they did against the Tennessee Titans, I think the sky's the limit for them, because the defense has to be the calling card, at least until this offense figures it out with their new quarterback, Derek Carr.
And that's where I'll go next, because Derek, I thought, played pretty well. I know he didn't get a ton of help up front, and, he extended a couple plays, and then he, of course, kind of ices the game with the long ball to Shaheed down the sideline there. But overall, I thought he was exactly what Derek Carr's supposed to be, right? Handled the game well, didn't make any critical mistakes, maybe outside of that interception at the end of the first half. So how do you grade out Derek Carr? And I know we'll get to the offensive line, because they were certainly not great in that first game.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about the offensive line the way that they played while you're evaluating Derek Carr. I think if you probably put another quarterback that wasn't as experienced in this situation, it probably wouldn't have went the way that it did. But what you saw was a guy who is a veteran of the game. He was able to stay poised. Yeah, he made that mistake going into that 2-minute drill to end the half, but for the most part, he made the plays that need to be made. And we seen last season when the Saints needed a quarterback to make the play more often than not, it didn't happen. And when you have a guy who has 33 career 4-quarter comebacks, it pays dividends in moments like this when you needed a play. I mean, that was an incredible pass that he threw down the left side. If Derek Carr could continue to play the way that he did on Sunday, and also build on that with the chemistry with his wide receivers, I think the offense will get on track sooner rather than later.
When you look at this group of pass catchers, TJ, and the skill players in general on the offense, I find myself getting more and more excited, because I thought Michael Thomas somewhat really resembled Michael Thomas, maybe even more so than I was hoping for. Olave, we know, is a budding superstar, and Rashid Shaheed, even missing much of training camp, looked like he was in pretty good form as well. You get Kamara back in week 4, and I'm starting to see a group of skill position players that can be really, really good. Do you agree with that assessment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when the game first started, you seen a lot of double coverage on Chris Olave. In that opening drive, Derek Carr wastes no time to let you know that Michael Thomas was back. I mean, that pass down the left sidelines, that back shoulder fade. It just shows you Michael Thomas is definitely back to form. But we don't need Michael Thomas. As a New Orleans Saints fan, you don't need Michael Thomas to be that 1,700-yard receiver he was back in 2019. If he can resemble maybe his rookie season when he had Brandon Cooks alongside him, I think that would be just fine. But it also just shows you the evolving, Rashid Shaheed and also Chris Olave, their development from year 1 to year 2. It just shows you that these are some dangerous receivers. And if they can all get on the same page, we can be talking about the Saints having one of the most high-powered offenses in all of the NFL.
We're talking with TJay Jones. He's the host of the State of the Saints podcast. He joins us here on RP3, D-Lo, and Meche. I thought they had good chemistry with the wide receivers. Obviously, the offensive line is a work in progress. The tight ends weren't as featured as much as I thought they were going to be, TJ.
Right.
But we know, based on seeing them at training camp and through the preseason, that is going to be part of the passing attack. It's going to be a large part of it is utilizing all 3 of those tight ends. Do you think we're going to start seeing that moving forward starting this week or early next week with the Monday Night Football game against the Carolina Panthers?
I think you'll start to see it as time goes on. I think the biggest issue was the fact that Trevor Penning struggled, and you needed those tight ends to be able to chip those defensive ends to make sure that they wasn't hitting Derek Carr in the face constantly. We seen he had 4 sacks on him in the first half, and the Saints made the adjustment by allowing guys like Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau to chip the defensive ends. But I don't think you're going to have a pass rush like that consistently. I think as time goes on, you'll see those tight ends get involved. Look, we know Derek Carr likes to get the tight ends involved. I mean, if you look at his track record with the Las Vegas Raiders, for the most part, every number 1 tight end that he's had has got a major payday because he was throwing them the football. So I don't expect things to be the way they were in week 1. I expect for the tight ends to be heavily involved, and you need them to be involved because, I mean, the Saints had opportunities in the red zone to be able to come away with 6 points, and they didn't. You got to be able to get guys like Jimmy Graham involved in the red zone. You got to be able to get Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau as well. But I think you'll see the tight ends get involved sooner rather than later.
The defense I thought was nasty. Kept them out of the end zone, forced the turnovers, and just not the back end of the secondary where they have all those versatile guys either. But up front, they did a nice job, even with Peyton Turner now being injured and likely done for the season. Give me your thoughts, because the defense came out strong, and if they can play that way to begin the season, unlike last year, that could be a huge difference maker in this team being a playoff team or not being one.
Yeah, and the best thing about it, Ray, is you didn't really see Cam Jordan. Like you weren't looking for Cam Jordan. You seen a group of guys collectively, getting it done outside of Cam Jordan. Now, Cam Jordan did his thing, of course, but you have to give credit to guys like Carl Granderson, who had a sack and a half. Pete Warner had a half a sack. Brian Brzee, the rookie out of Clemson, he had a half a sack. And that's what you want. And, the biggest issue was who was going to be that guy opposite of Cam Jordan. Were we going to see more athletic performances by the interior? And we've seen all that. So, and if Carl Granderson can replicate what he did Sunday against the Titans, I think that we can be seeing a Trey Hendrickson type year for him. I mean, we remember the last season Trey Hendrickson was in a Saints uniform before he got paid in Cincinnati. He had 15 and a half sacks. I think this can be a double-digit year for Carl Granderson. Every single year he's been in the league, you see him getting better and better. So if he can continue to replicate that and pile it on, it's going to be a magical season for this defense and Carl Granderson.
Get you out of here with this, brother. Panthers are always a thorn in the side of the New Orleans Saints. A lot's been made about the Saints struggling against rookie quarterbacks, but actually they have a very good record against rookie quarterbacks in the last 10 years or so. Bryce Young, good young player, but that offensive line isn't very good, and I don't know if he has any real reliable, healthy weapons as well.
Right.
How do you think this goes down Monday night in Charlotte?
Well, everything is telling me that this should be a Saints win, but we all know that, like you just alluded to, Carolina continues to give the Saints headaches. They have been the Achilles heel for the New Orleans Saints, no matter what they roll out there. And if you think about Brian Burns, the defensive end, he had a sack and a half against the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm pretty sure he's licking his chops going up against Trevor Penning. And if, that defense can come to form and be able to get stops and get the ball into the hands of Bryce Young, the more opportunities you give your offense to be able to put up points, the better. And yeah, they're young, they're inexperienced. They don't really have a number 1 receiver. I guess you can say Adam Thielen, but he's a little bit long in the tooth. I think that, his best days are behind him. You got Jonathan Mingo, you got Laviska Shenault, but those guys are still young and they're trying to figure it out. And so is Bryce Young. So the Saints have to take this opportunity to go out there and they got to get this win. This team is trying to figure it out. I'm talking Carolina. They changed from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense. The offensive line, like you just mentioned, is kind of in shambles right now. You got to go out there and you got to handle your business. But if the Saints keep Carolina around and not just go into the game being physical and trying to jump on them early, this can be a game where we're wondering why in the world did the Saints lose to the Carolina Panthers. We know every single year the Saints have a game like that. Hopefully this won't be the game and they can get the job done.
TJ, always appreciate your time, brother. Keep up the tremendous work that you're doing with State of the Saints and so much more, my friend. We'll talk to you soon and enjoy your weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.